are you thinking about getting married? You might want to think twice. I'm serious. Divorce rates, 50% for the first marriage. Second marriages, 60%. And third marriages, 73%. So why would you even try with only a 25% chance of making it? Isn't that crazy? Hang in there. We're having a little problem with our phones now, so I'm going to take a quick break here and fix it, okay?
A veteran's hope. Where are you hiding? I search for you in the seconds, the minutes of each and every day. Hear me as I call out to you. Welcome me home. Alone we stood. Divided we fell. No longer. Now we choose to make the connection. Our new mission lies within. Visit maketheconnection.net to learn more.
Okie dokie, got it fixed. Like I said, a third marriage, 73% divorce rate. So why would you even try? That's like 25% chance, less than 25% chance that you're not going to make it. Well, what needs to be addressed to cut those rates? You know, it's money, kids, future plans, and a whole lot more. Well, Joryn Jenkins is an award-winning attorney, legal strategist, and best-selling author of a lot of books, including War or Peace, Avoid the Destruction of Divorce, and let's see what else. Oh, I Never Saw My Father Again, The Divorce Court Effect. Now, she is, as I said, a trial attorney with over 40 years of courtroom experience. Hi, Joryn, how are you?
Hey there. I know I'm going to shock you, but I'm writing another book now.
Oh, how many books do you have?
I think it's 9, but
Wow.
I'm writing a fable. It started out, it was intended for kids, but I'm afraid I've got to run it by some kids before I decide whether it's really for kids. It may be for teenagers.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see. We'll just have to see.
Hey, listen, those kids, those little ones are a lot sharper than when I was growing up, I'll tell you.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And they know way too much about divorce, most of them, because it's so prevalent in our society today.
That's so sad. But why do people they keep getting married over and over and over again? It's like...
Oh, no, it's worse. It's worse than that.
Yeah?
Jane, I did a divorce for a guy.
I'm sorry?
I did a divorce for a guy. He married wife A and was with her for 20, 25 years. I can't remember, long time. They got divorced. He married wife B. They were married for 6 months before wife B just sort of disappeared on him. So he's hanging out. He's doing whatever he's doing. Wife A shows up again. So he marries her again. Don't ask me why. They're married for another 20 years. And during their divorce, she puts wife B on the stand to testify for her.
Oh, my God.
And wife B, on the stand, admits that the reason she left him was because wife A called her and said, "Get out of my house." And this woman was so dumb that she just said, "Okay," and she left. Well, guess what happened? This is what's gonna make you drop your jaw. He married wife B again.
Oh, my. Is he an idiot?
So I think, and they're still happily married. They're in their 80s, you know.
Oh, my God.
And I check on them now and then because it's kind of, it's an
You should write a book about them.
Well, there's a chapter somewhere. I can't remember which book it's in, but you know, very interesting story. I boiled it down really small for this audience, but it's a very interesting story. And I think the bottom line is that people are eternal optimists. I mean, Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor got married twice.
Yeah.
And divorced twice.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have this eternal sense that we'll find the right person.
Yeah, and it won't be us. It'll be somebody else who gets divorced, right?
Yeah. And I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that's wrong. What I think is wrong is that we don't try to fix what might be wrong in the first place, whether it's fix what's wrong in the marriage and make the marriage work, or fix what's wrong with our approach so that the next time we get married, it's more likely to work. And that's what I see interesting in this collaborative divorce thing that I'm pushing, this idea that a kinder, gentler divorce will create better communication for people. I mean, I've had people reconcile in the middle of their divorce process.
Really?
And oh yeah, and this divorce, it was I didn't quite. I mean, she filed charges against him for battery.
Oh.
She had him up for domestic violence, and they still managed to talk it out and to get around their communication problems, and they're back together, and they've been together for 3 years since the last time I checked.
You know what amazes me is that young people, I mean, I don't know, are you married?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how long?
27 years.
Oh, that's your children.
I know, you bragger.
I know, but I mean, I'm coming up, honestly. January will be the end of this January, 51 years. But we dated 4 years before that, so I've known him a long time.
So wait a second. Let me do the math. I'll figure out how old you are.
Oh, yeah, you can. I'll tell you how old I'm. I'm 75. And still going strong.
You crammed a lot in there, didn't you, lady?
Yep. Sure did. But here's the thing. Young people, it's like, oh, it's chemistry. Oh, I'm in love. Shouldn't you be talking about some of the stuff that you have in your mind? Do you want to have children? Have a career? From the female's point of view, as well as the male's point of view. These should all be talked about before you even walk down the aisle.
Yeah. Who's going to pay the check? How
Thank you.
To get paid? Who's going to fund the bank account? How are we going to raise the kids? Do you believe in corporal punishment? Do you want them raised as Jews or as Catholics?
Yeah.
Love when you're that young, and we all say this, and they don't listen to us, is a lot about hormones.
Yeah. That's true.
But you can still be smart, and it's really amazing that you bring this up because I am doing more prenuptial agreements than I ever thought possible.
Really?
Literally. At any given time now, I have 5 of them among my many clients. I have 5 of them going. And 5 years ago, if I had one at any given time, that was unusual.
Is it for the money only, or is it for a lot of things?
No, it's become a thing because I think what people are discovering is that they can talk these issues out. And this is one forum that is ready, willing, and available. The lawyers who do prenuptial agreements, some of them aren't used to this. They are really advocates at heart, and so it's all about just negotiating. But when I or my colleagues are doing them, we're talking about what do you want covered in this prenup? Do you want to talk about the kids? Do you want to talk about how you're going to raise them? Do you want to talk about relationships outside the marriage? And by that I don't mean sexual relationships, although I can see how you might think that, but it could be that too, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm talking, relationships with other parts of the extended family. People want to discuss these things. I have couples come to see me where one of them does not speak to the mom. And why is that? How did that happen? Is that likely to happen inside your family now? Is it catching? Is it a relationship problem? Is it a communication problem? Can we avoid that happening in the future? Can we fix that problem? So,
is the number one divorce rate for money?
Say that again?
The number one divorce reason used to be money.
Yeah, it still is. Finances. People don't talk about the finances ahead of time. Now, keep in mind that in 2009, we saw very little divorce, despite the recession. But the reason we saw very little divorce was because no one could afford the divorce.
Oh.
And in 2000, no, I'm not kidding. Oh. And in 2011, the divorce rate really spiked. Oh. I don't know if the numbers would bear me out, but I can tell you that in my practice, it spiked because, and I would ask people, what made you decide to do this now? Well, we can now afford to get divorced.
Oh, boy.
People were living in their homes, and they weren't paying the mortgage because they couldn't afford to pay the mortgage, and neither one could afford to move out. So they just stayed in the home, and they made it work.
Wow. Whatever happened to the word commitment, Joryn?
Yeah. Well, commitment means something different, I think, today. I don't think that people think it means forever and ever. I don't think that they think that it means I'm going to work on this really, really hard and I'm not going to give up. We're too much of a, and this is critical, and I don't mean to sound critical, but we have morphed into a society that throws stuff away.
Yeah.
Look at all the garbage we create.
Yeah,
we don't recycle nearly as much as we could. We just throw stuff away, and we do that with our relationships as well. You hear about people who ghost other people. Mm-hmm. Ghosting is where you have a relationship, and then you suddenly cut them off. You don't respond to them by email, by text, by any way. You don't answer the phone when they call, because now we can see who's calling us, so we can't accidentally answer if we don't want to talk to that person.
True.
So you ghost them, and that's, to me, that's horrible. I don't think that's the right way to end a relationship. I think you end a relationship by saying, what's on your mind, so that perhaps it doesn't happen again.
I mean, I can understand if it's alcohol, drugs, abuse. Those are good reasons for divorce. I have no problem with that. But just because we don't agree on one thing, or we have a different aspect of political one, that's another one. That's not a reason for divorce.
Huh. Well, you need to tell that to one half of the country, and then go and tell the other half of the country too.
Jeez, I don't know. Do they ever turn people down when they go before a judge for a divorce?
Well, that's old news. In the old days, you would go in front of a judge, and if he thought that marriage counseling would help, he would send you to marriage counseling.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, I'm speaking from Florida's perspective, and every state is different, but remarkably, most of them are pretty much the same. These days, you don't need an excuse to get divorced. You can just go and say, my marriage is irretrievably broken, meaning marriage counseling won't help. And the judge doesn't care. I mean, his job is to make sure that the loose ends are tied and you get your divorce. If one person wants a divorce and the other does not, it's rare that the other person will even get the judge to order marriage counseling.
No kidding. Jeez.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad.
But the thing is, then we don't have much regard for marriage. So why bother?
No, not like that's true. Society is morphed. We got to get with the program. It's definitely morphed. I would not be surprised if sometime in the near future, and by that I mean 5 to 10 years, we're looking at contracts to be married for certain periods of time. And then you either renew the contract or you move on.
Oh, for him.
It makes it easier. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm not saying that in the old days, and I saw the old days anything like 20 years ago. That's old days.
Yeah.
People had disagreements. People had arguments, and then they worked it out. Or maybe they just worked hard enough out of the house that it didn't matter so much when they got home because they were tired.
Mary Jane, where did you meet your husband?
College, Indiana University.
And you both went to college. How far away from your hometown? How far away from his hometown?
Oh, probably about 300 miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both of you, about that?
Yeah, and we were totally different places. I was born and raised in South Chicago, and he was born and raised in a tiny little town called Bern, Indiana. It was a Swiss community. So we were totally different. I'm Catholic. He was Mennonite. Much.
So you knew where I was going with that.
Yeah.
So you've worked hard on your marriage, and so has he. I'm going to suggest to you that in the old days, and I don't mean 20 years ago, I mean 50 years, 100 years.
Yeah.
People grew up in the same town. Their values were very aligned.
Mm-hmm.
They knew all the same people. And once they get married, they stayed married because there wasn't that much disagreement.
Yeah.
And now it's way too easy for someone from California to fall in love with someone from New York.
Yep.
And they get married and they move to Chicago because that's where his job is or that's where her job is. and life is full of stress because there's so much movement in our society. We're constantly introduced to new people, and by the way, there's no truer expression than the grass is always greener.
Mm-hmm.
You're traveling for work, and you meet people on the plane, and the stranger is always more interesting than your husband. It's just the way it is. And we have not learned to adapt to that. We have not learned to value and treasure those deep-seated relationships that we've worked on, that we've put the effort into.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we haven't put enough effort in. But I will tell you that I was married briefly, and so when I finally got married again, I was already 37, which is it's kind of getting up there.
Yeah.
And I was very intent on making this marriage work, and so was he, because we were both second marriages for both of us,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a child involved, and not my stepdaughter, and she's the only child I have, and she is a treasured relationship to me. So I think that you kind of have to work on your perspective, and when you get married these days, I think you really should focus on asking all those questions ahead of time.
Oh,
you know
betcha.
You know this. You know I believe in that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got to be honest with you. We dated for 4 years. So,
Mm-hmm.
I asked him all kinds of questions. We went through a whole litany of things. And but the last thing that I said just before we got married, because he was going to be sent to Vietnam. He did not tell me. This is a very strong rock person, because he knew that I would not get married if I knew he was going to Vietnam, because I had lost someone very close to me in Vietnam, and I would have waited till he came back, but he didn't tell me. But the only thing I ever told him is, I said, if you are not happy in this marriage, and I don't know, maybe I was either ahead of my time or crazy, I'm not sure. But I said, if you are not happy in this marriage, tell me. I want to be the first to know. If I'm not happy in the marriage, I will tell you. But do something behind my back, and I will take you down. Simple. I mean, isn't that pretty honest, though? I mean, if you're not happy, we'll consider it finished, and we'll be friends. But if you go behind my back and do something that you shouldn't do, like, adultery, then that's it. I will find a way to take you down, and you will suffer. So, I mean, I was pretty honest, straightforward, before we got married.
Well, it's interesting, because I think that people sometimes cheat on their partner because they don't know how else to get out of the marriage. They don't know how to broach that subject. People are, and I will tell you the truth, I was very afraid to tell my husband of only 2 years that I wanted a divorce, because I believed in that commitment, and I didn't quite know. But as it turns out, I was married to a sociopath, so I have a good excuse.
Oh, my word.
But I will tell you, it was frightening to tell him. And what I did was, he sold the house without telling me he'd sold our house.
Oh, my gosh.
And, this was back when you could get away with that. And so I moved into a separate house, and 4 months after that, we'd been separated for 4 months. 4 months after that, I finally got up the nerve to tell him that I wanted a divorce.
Oh, my gosh.
But it's so I know how scary it is to make the decision to divorce. It's very frightening. I have people come see me all the time who are just doing their homework, which I applaud them for.
Yeah.
And if there's any way I can do it, I send them to marriage counseling. And I've saved 3 marriages that I know of that way.
Good for you. Good for
Yeah,
you.
well,
but
you got to do the right thing if you can.
Absolutely. And everybody goes through, when you get into marriage, you think everything is going to be terrific, hunky-dory for a long time. And then all of a sudden you hit these glitches. I mean, my husband went to Vietnam. There's been illness in the family, up and down, up and down. But, when you do the vows, at least I thought they were something that I should keep. It's in sickness and in health, richer or poorer. I thought those things were valid, when I said them.
Yeah. I did not do this purposefully, but I realized after we were married that I married him in part because I could see his father and how caregiving he was for his mother and the rest of the family.
Oh.
And I could see, as much as my husband hates this, I can see how much like his dad he is. It's so funny.
Well,
I mean, and we often say that women marry their fathers, and sure enough, Alexis has, in fact, married a man who is so similar to my husband. It's funny.
No
I
kidding.
mean, I laugh at her. We'll be on the phone, and I'll just laugh and go, you realize that you married your dad.
But the funny thing about it is I loved my dad, believe me. I was so much like my dad, temper-wise and everything else. I knew I could not marry someone like my dad in many ways. And in taking care of the family and all that kind of thing, absolutely, But there were a few things that I looked for. If he had a terrible temper and he was going to blow up all the time, that would have been it. No. Because we would have killed each other in 6 months,
Yeah.
It would have been over. But, you have to know what you want and then wait for that. I mean, I didn't even know if I was going to get married, period. I mean, it wouldn't have made any difference if I didn't.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right about that. But it's not just knowing what you want; it's doing the homework.
Thank you.
And the homework includes there's a list of questions that I've compiled. God, I think it's 2,000 questions now. To be honest.
Wow.
That I recommend that people now. My list, that long list of 2,000, includes different questions for people who are 20, 30, 40, 50 years old.
Right.
So, there are different things that you want to focus on. Obviously, you're not going to ask a 60-year-old if she wants to have children. You're going to ask a 60-year-old if she has children and how old they are and how involved she is in their lives, and,
Absolutely.
that kind of stuff.
Now, you have a website, don't you?
I do. It's JorynJenkins.com. My law firm is openpalmlaw.com. So I have two different websites.
Okay.
Because I do marketing as well as law.
Now, the JorynJenkins.com, does that have all your books on it? Yeah?
I think they both have all my books on.
Oh, good. No, good. That's why I want to check.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I want to thank you so much, as always. We've got to talk about this more, and I wish, more young people in high school would be talking about these things.
Oh, you know what? I interviewed a gal for Yale today. She's 17 years old. We had a lovely cup of coffee, and I talked to her about this as well.
Excellent. Keep up the good work, because that's what we need to do. Let them know what's coming.
Mary Jane, I could not agree more.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon, and you stay well too now. Okay?
You as well.
Thank you so much. Joryn Jenkins, War on War Peace. That's one book. I Never Saw My Father Again. The Court Effect. I mean, this woman has written some absolutely fantastic books, and she is fantastic as a person that can just, make a difference. In the meantime, live simply, laugh often, love deeply, and above all else, you dare to dream. We'll talk with you next time right here on Popoff.